So we're back with episode number 6 here in kind of World Brewers Championship Boston edition. Patrik is ranting / reflecting on how things went. For those of you that are halfway through and forgot how it went, we placed second place in the world, highest open service in the whole competition, not the highest compulsory. Meaning there's people in the world that are way better than we are, so learn from them. However, this is just a transparent way of sharing what we have done. It's not saying that what we did was good. Obviously, it wasn't good enough, and we're very aware of that. But it's still an opportunity to reflect and just see what we do, right? So, number 6 here, I'm just looking on the board on the side here to keep track of what I'm doing because I'm doing a lot of videos. Presentation concept is point number 6. So what do we think about in terms of presentation? What are important? What is relevant? I keep coming back to this quite often. And I think one of the major kind of concepts and parts of doing this is it needs to come from you. Step 1. I think part of if we had any strength this year is that presentation, I haven't seen that presentation before in a World Championship. And I do have a feeling that that was a good representation of where I am as a coffee professional. Simple, clean, no fuss, straight to the point. The focus is on the service. We created our own server, our own brewer. We kept everything white, pink. Was pink because of higher perceived sweetness due to colors? Not necessarily. Do I believe in that as a concept? I mean, people say it's true, so it's probably true, and it's people that are smarter than I am. I don't necessarily see any impact or any clear kind of guidance where in competition formats that have helped people, but still white and pink, mainly because I want to keep it simple. Focused a lot on workflow this year, trying to make it as clean as possible, as functional as possible, as little movements as possible. Really focusing on the people sitting in front of you. In terms of structuring the presentation, as always, we want to make it more of a brew competition. In Brazil, if you guys remembered, I was actually grinding on stage. I rinsed my filter on stage. Something that I did to kind of try to highlight a bit more the actual brewing factor of it. However, the result and the feedback on that always is that people don't care. I mean, the judges don't care. The judges don't score you higher for grinding on stage. You should know that. The judges don't score you higher for rinsing your filter on stage. We're definitely at a tipping point here with the competition now where there's a bit of confusion of where to kind of go next and how to make it more into a brewing competition. Because it's not necessarily, they say it in the rules, there should be a representative version of, a coffee shop experience. But then, there's still some people spending more time showing iPads than actually talking to the guests. And again, this is not a critique for what anyone else have done. This is just what we did and why we did it. I like to keep it open. I like to keep it focused on the judges. The way I look at presentations is that it's an amazing opportunity for you to serve coffee to 3 people that actually want your coffee. I mean, they're sitting there, they're excited. And I mean, it's very rare that you have the opportunity of doing this kind of service. And I think that's a really fun time. It's a really pleasurable thing to do. And it's just a good vibe. You have 3 people there wanting your coffee, and your job is to explain that as good as you can. And I mean, the focus here in the presentation is that you need to you need to explain to them why or where the strongest flavor notes in your coffee comes from. That's the way that we look at it. So you start with the coffee, identifying those kind of strong characters in the coffee, and then your presentation is there to basically make them excited about the coffee. Show that you know what you're doing in terms of brewing, but also explain why is the character of the coffee, the harmony of this coffee, the way that it is. So focus more on that than anything else, and we try to do it really clean and be on point. And I mean, the judges to some extent liked it, right? There's things we can improve on that as well, for sure. But there's also things that we did very well. So it's a balance. I think it really comes down to, you know, as long as what you're saying is connected to the final cup, focusing on the fact that it is a coffee shop experience. There are people sitting in front of you. They're not judges. I think that's if you go about it focusing on them as judges, I think it becomes, you know, really stiff directly. Yeah, you know, it's just three people there sitting there wanting to, you know, taste a really tasty cup of coffee, and they're fucking good at what they do. So it's a really fun environment to serve coffee in. And we should talk a bit about music, which Joe is gonna laugh here when he edits this video, because he kind of don't like the fact that I use the same song twice. But I think this year was the first time I actually had music in mind. I usually don't, because it's not that big part of my life at the moment. But I saw this one guy in the Danish national, terrible with names, I'm not going to try to remember, I think Daniel or David, that competed, and doesn't matter how it went for him, but I still remember the first 4 minutes of his presentation. I thought that was the most beautiful, like impactful presentation I've heard in a very long time. And I was standing there, he had this beautiful story about his connection to the coffee, and the music kind of went on, and I just got goosebumps. I mean, that was extraordinary. And I just went up with him directly after and just asked him, so, you know, where does the music come from? And he was kind enough to share it. And long story short, I took the same 5-minute track and I played it twice. And I think it really created a vibe that fitted that presentation well. It was maybe a bit too cheesy, but we wanted to make an impact, wanted to, you know, make people feel that there was some kind of emotional aspect of this. And I think to some degree we managed to do that. So, I mean, that was fun. What else? Competition time. I think, I mean, every year we still have competitors going overtime. It's a thing. Stop going overtime. Easier to say than do, maybe, and I will be at a point where I will go overtime as well. I know that, but I mean, put your practice up so that you have time, meaning that when you practice at home, finish at 9 minutes. That means you have 10 minutes. That means that you have 1 more minute to fuck up on stage and you still be fine, or be slower than what you are. Most people, they go to stage and actually either they're so concerned with fitting everything in because they believe that the strength of their presentation requires everything to be in there, so that they actually just go over time anyway. Or two, they get very, very comfortable on stage, which actually happens quite often. You get more comfortable than what you're used to, and therefore you actually become slower, and you're actually losing time. But I mean, the reality is, if you go over time, you're most likely not going to be in the final. So just avoid going over time. I think that's a good way to put it. And I mean, there's no reason why you know, you don't have to use 10 minutes to make a perfect presentation. You really don't. Just put it in a ball game, so that you're able to just say what you need to say. Also, what we did, which was relatively new from previous years, is that we focused a lot more on taste descriptors, a lot more on taste delivering. So how do we actually say those and share those? And I think we made that considerably better than what we've done previous years. And I think that's been a big part of the presentation. There's one reservation, I think, which we should say, and it's been a debate a bit about if I got any critique on my presentation, and it wasn't that much critique, but if there was anything, it was that one judge had an idea about my ending, whereas a lot of the times in the World Championships, people want these really extravagant save the world ends, you know, where, you know, we're all a big family and all of this. And personally, that's not necessarily how I do things, and that wasn't what I was looking for in my presentation. So my end is relatively clean with enjoy the coffee, and I just want them to enjoy the coffee and focus on that. For next year, will I do a more extravagant end? Yeah, maybe. I mean, if that can bump my points up a bit, why not? But, you know, let's focus on that in the future. But I mean, keep it simple, keep it about the coffee, keep it about explaining why is this coffee tasting the way it does, because that's really what those 10 minutes is about, and showing that you're in control of that process. And I mean, as we're trying to do things the way that we always do it, you know, we do presentations based on what would I want to hear, you know, what would I want to see. If I sit here and, you know, it's a pretty stressful situation as a judge as well, to sit there and how can I make them comfortable? How would I be comfortable? And what do I want to hear about coffee? And just, have it come from you. We've seen, it's amazing that people are starting to get coaches, but we also see a lot of people doing presentations that have been done before, especially nationals. And I mean, for me, I think we're missing the point, because competing needs to be about you. It needs to be about your experience. It needs to be about you becoming better. It can't be about you doing exactly what other people have done in the past. And for me, that's not coaching as well. Coaching is not about, let's just do exactly what I did because that works. For me, coaching is about finding, what do you want to share? What is your representation, right? It needs to come from you. So, I mean, if you're out there and you want to compete and you're looking for a coach, not necessarily call me, because I don't have much time doing that, but, use the best ones, which you always should, but also be aware that they win because they do something that comes from them. People that are just copying other people, sure, they can score high, but they rarely win, right? So it's about you. You need to find your connection, your brew approach, your ways of doing things. And you're going to realize that you'll be a lot less nervous. Your presentation points will go up, and it will just come across as a lot more genuine. So focus on what you want to do. Have people help you. Always learn. Always from people that are better than you. But, don't lose track on yourself within that process. So that was about it. That's what I had about presentations this time. Comments down here if you have any. Thank you guys for watching.